we have one announcement. Does anybody else have any other announcements? 2 announcements. 3 announcements. Okay, go first.
Can we get the PC? Yeah, our website's involved. Me first then?
Go on, yeah.
Hello, everybody. Thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm here just to raise awareness of a conference that some local people are putting on in Edinburgh. This is the DevOps Days conference. It's a kind of franchise model. They run DevOps Days around the world, but this is the very first one in Edinburgh. So just briefly, for those who aren't sure what DevOps is or only aware of it as a buzzword, to me, DevOps is 2 things. It's an effort to improve the services and products that a lot of us work on. And the other thing, the very important thing, is an effort to make everyone's lives better in the process of improving those services and products. How that's achieved is by a lot of different methods. It means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. So what we're going to do is we're going to get together for 2 days, 23rd and 24th of October. We're going to chat about that. There's going to be some talks. The talks are going to range through things like specific tools, some techniques, touching on architecture, things like that, and also a few on culture and continuous learning, that sort of thing. So what I'll say is just come along. It's going to be great. It's a very reasonable £150 for a ticket, which is a lot cheaper than many other conferences, and it's in Edinburgh, so you won't have to persuade your employers to stump up for travel expenses. If you go to the website, DevOps Days, you'll see the DevOps Days Edinburgh. This is our special logo here with a unicorn on it. I'm not sure, somebody from Skyscanner designed it, but anyway. So yeah, I think that's about everything I have to say. Does anybody have any questions? Well, thank you very much then.
Okay, so a couple of months back, I gave a talk about networking, and there were a bunch of guys here who work in ISPs and stuff, and they've set up this TechMeetUp Scotland event, the first of which is happening on the 25th of September in the Beehive on the Grassmarket. So if networking is at all interesting to you, then that is the place to go and meet other like-minded people. Right, there we go.
Just to make you aware, folks, tonight's talk, there are some content and trigger warnings around it. There will be discussion of harassment, and there will be also a rather large example around suicide. If that's something that feels somewhat close to home for yourself, I would suggest the suicide example in particular, it might be something you want to avoid. Okay, so feel free to, at any point during the evening, if you feel uncomfortable, please feel free to just step out, okay? If you want to excuse yourself before we start the talks, that's absolutely fine. If you want to leave during the talks, that's absolutely fine, okay? Thank you.
Okay. Okay, it's 1948. We will start the first talk at 1958, just to make it more precise and memorable. So you get 10 minutes to go for a ciggy, go for a wee, get more drink, finish the pizza, and that's it. Okay, it's 1958, time to get started. Grab a seat.
There we go. How do we flip that? I don't know.
Is that one?
It is. I'm all green.
Okay, we're only having one talk tonight, and this is it.
Good evening, folks. My name's Peter Aitken. I'm here to talk to you about how our language and behaviour can be more inclusive. And we've kind of covered the content warnings, but around harassment and suicide. Please, again, just to reinforce it, if anybody feels uncomfortable, wants to leave, it's absolutely fine. Okay?
We're all adults, though, so I don't think we would need your permission to do that. That seems a bit odd as a thing to say.
Well, you know, it'll be covered. Okie dokie. So, my name's Peter Aitken. I work at a company called Litmus. We build an app that allows email marketers and designers to test their emails in a multitude of ways that I could never imagine. There's so much going on there. So, yeah, if you're interested, take a look. I organise Scotland JS and Scotland CSS, and this is how you can get hold of me on the Twitters, and I'll quickly take a little squiz at my notes. So why do I want to talk about inclusion and language and behaviour and how, I should be over there, shouldn't I? I'll just keep pacing. Why do I want to talk about this? And it's been kind of an interesting realisation and learning experience for me over the last couple of years in particular. I feel as if, you know, there's a whole load of things that you're ingrained with, like in the playground, and due to lack of experience of different people and different situations that you're not exposed to, that learning doesn't really progress and you're kind of stuck with it until you then find yourself in the situation where you do. And that's kind of where I've learned a lot of things through the conference. So in my previous, well, not my previous, my experience sort of as an Agile coach and developer, right up there in the Agile Manifesto is this idea of people over process. And I would always be preaching this all the time. But then I sort of find out in the last couple of years that, you know, there's all these systemic issues and I'm kind of part of the problem. So that's why I want to talk about this and help share what I've learned and my understanding of these things. By no means am I an expert, but it's just here's what I've learned so far, and try and bring folk up to speed with that. So I suppose the key thing that I've picked up over the last couple of years is a better understanding of this word privilege. On the Twitters, I would always see people really hacked off and complaining about white male privilege, and everything felt like it was my fault. And to an extent, it's not necessarily directed at me, it's more the group as a whole and society. So the way I sort of, the understanding and definition, which might be a bit long-winded, sorry, is that we each, and it isn't restricted to this, but this is kind of where I've got to, in that we all present ourselves to the world through a number of factors. You know, there's our ethnicity, there's our religion, there's our sexuality, there's our gender, are you able-bodied? And given all of these things, other people, through what society feels is acceptable or not, what you've learned on the playground, have you learned anything since? What situations, people, scenarios have you been exposed to? Society sort of grants, basically holds open doors to different extents. And that's sort of reinforced by all of us. So to sort of look over everything, you know, when it comes to things like bigotry, racism, homophobia, and all the other things that I've already mentioned, each one of those, all of us will have a slightly different level of, for example, somebody might not be homophobic at all, somebody might be like 100%. And so, and each of us will be different within that scale. Then when it comes to racism and bigotry and all these sorts of things, it will be there within us all to some degree, unfortunately. And so, but the society sets a sort of context for that and where society is. And society will hold, so doors open or closed, depending on, to an extent, how you present yourself. So for example, as a white male, if I, for example, lost my job tomorrow, I'm fairly confident in the knowledge that I could get another job within a couple of months, no matter how poorly, obscenely, badly, inappropriately I behaved. That's not the case for everybody else. So those sort of the spectrum of isms, I suppose, might be a way to put it, are going to be different for all of us. So everybody is going to receive this talk somewhat differently. Yeah, so it is very much about you and what you take from it. So what we're going to do is go through a number of, well, let's see, about a year ago, I put a message out on the Twitters asking people if they were comfortable to sort of divulge or explain how and what made them feel excluded when it comes to technology, the community, their workplace. And the first example, not necessarily JavaScript, but we all work with a variety of different technologies. Can you raise your hands if you've ever been in a position when somebody has been slating that technology that you happen to be using for your day job? There's got to be more than that, and it's about 80% already. Okie doke. So, it happens. Folk have got preferences, but when it's repeated and repeated, it starts to get a bit wearing, runs you down. Does it make you disengage from those people? Okie dokie. Our next example, let's see, this woman was, I would like you to try and put yourselves in these people's position. So this woman was in her day job, quite happily coding away, doing everything that you would usually do, nice and professionally.
Why do they let women touch computers?
So that wasn't necessarily Mark's opinion, but but thank you very much, Mark. That was planned. And so the intention was that ideally you all get a bit of a fright, as the woman did in her day job. And think about that happening repeatedly every week or so. That because somebody's wound up about, it could be something at home, it could be the dog made a mess of the carpet, but all of a sudden it's getting vented. This is how it's coming out in some possibly horrible and exclusionary way. When this is happening, it's, quite frankly, it's intimidating. It's intimidation. And to be on the receiving end of that continually, this is going to, at some point, when you report it, you take it further, nothing gets done. This is going to lower your self-worth, your self-value, and your self-esteem. I should find out what the next slide says. The next example, excuse me. Oh, I should organise more folk to get involved. So in this situation that women got in touch to explain was that, right, I suppose, so again, try and put yourself in her position. You've been working in some sort of tech web consultancy for, say, 9 years. It was your first job. You've been there the whole time. You've got at least 3 years more experience than any of the other developers in the company. There's maybe about a dozen or so, and maybe about a small company, say about 20 people. And it's like everybody in the business, when they're scoping out new projects, who do they come to? They come to you. Any of the other developers, if they have a lack of understanding or there's questions, they come to you. The business, everything hinges on you. And at one point, there was a new client coming in, and so pretty much everybody's gathered for the sort of Monday morning meeting, and the director's bringing in the new client. So Tom comes in and says, "Hi folks, this is Bill. I'd like to, Bill's going to be telling us all about this new project that's coming up, Project XYZ." And Bill comes in and he's like, "Hi everybody, it's really good to be here, really happy to be working with you. And why are you here?"
the idea of, simply by being a woman in a development sort of consultancy was just this, was the reason for this question. So, obviously, engage brain before opening mouth is a solution here. But April put this a bit more concisely. If you're about to say, you don't look like someone who would consider rejecting the stereotype and keeping an open mind instead. For these kinds of things to be happening to people continually in their day job, again, self-esteem, self-worth, why am I bothering in this industry? Our next example involves a woman who had went to something that's getting very popular these days, boot camps. And they were in the lab, quite happily getting on with whatever sort of homework or assignment it was. There's a number of other classmates strewn about. Everybody's happily getting on with things. And in come a group of about 5 or 6 young men. And the laptops all get opened. There's lots of hilarity. It's all very boisterous. There's obviously lots of chatter. It's getting louder. And there's lots of discussion, very explicitly, about what they would like to do to the semi-clad women that were in the pictures that are getting fired about in instant messenger messages, and shared right there. So at this point, someone apprehensively go over to approach them and point out that this is unacceptable behaviour. And, we're in a professional environment. We've paid a lot of money to come to boot camp. Do we really need to explain this? But, it's wholly inappropriate. And, even at a basic level, all this noise and folks are trying to get on with their work. Does it need explained? Apparently so. So the response when asking the folk or approaching the men was, it's just a joke. It's nothing to worry about. It's all just a bit of harmless fun, sort of thing. But it's not. It's objectifying women. It's sexist. It's misogynistic, and this is the standard that this woman was set for other men in the industry. And I would like to highlight this phrase as well as a bit of a trigger takeaway. If you find yourself saying this, especially in the case of those men, was they're trying to cover their ass. They know they were behaving inappropriately, but it's just like, hey, it's just a joke, it's no big deal. No. So if you find yourself using that, consider, have I seriously upset somebody, and what did I do to cause that? I know at home, after that realization, I said that and I was like, oh. Yeah. So, as I mentioned, the women in this situation, and there was about 3 or 4 other examples around this. In this situation, the woman has no idea what the men's, what their boundary is. If this behaviour is acceptable, where is it? Where is the line that is not acceptable for an individual? And it's presumably going to be different for each individual. So it's just this permanent, who can I trust? If we take a look at Rape Crisis Scotland website, there's a rather terrifying statistic on there that 1 in 3 women worldwide have experienced either physical and or sexual intimate partner violence or non-partner sexual violence in their lifetime. Worldwide. So, being a woman with those statistics in this industry, when other people are setting the boundaries, I think that must be a pretty terrifying experience. It's not restricted to this industry by any means. What's going on here? Hide this menu button. Ah! There we go. Bring to front. There we go. Nope, I don't want to do that. We'll just wing it then. Okie doke. Okie doke. So this is our last example, and we're going to start by getting everybody standing up. So a little bit about mental health before we let you sit down. Mental health is very much like physical health, and in a regard in the UK, it's very much taboo and misunderstood. And so mental health, well, let's compare it with physical health. In physical health, you have good slow down, I might get all the words out. Physical health, we have good physical health, we have poor physical health. There's times we're ill, we need to go to the doctor. Mental health, in that regard, is exactly the same. We have good mental health, we have poor mental health. There's times we're ill and we need to go to the doctor. So at the minute, I'd like to see if we could demonstrate a bit of the scale of the issue in society, which we are absolutely hopeless at talking about. I'm going to run through some different mental health issues, and if you know anyone that suffers from any of them, please just sit down. So if you know anyone that suffers from depression, please sit down. I think I can go home. Self-harm, obsessive compulsive disorder, panic attacks, suicide. I think we'll stop there. So how many folks have we got in the room roughly? 2, 10, 20, about 50? 50? 1 out of 50. And the times that this talk's been given before, there was about 60 odd, 70 people. Exact same number. Time before, when this exercise was done at the conference, we had about 154 people and 2 people left standing. So out of 250 people, there's 4 people that aren't aware of anybody with any issues. Thank you. So yeah, that's pretty scary. So yes, the final example. This is somewhat uncomfortable to go through. So yeah, if you're not comfortable, please feel free to leave. To explain a little bit about suicide, this statement when learning about it really just didn't make sense. The idea that when someone is going to attempt suicide, the goal is not to kill themselves, which just did not compute to me. Yes, James? Oh, sorry, I thought you were. So, learning about this, I can't remember the exact statistic, but it was more than 80% of people. Their goal, what has happened is they've found themselves in a horrible, horrible, desperate situation. And this is the only way that they can see out of it. That's tragic. Okay. So, I would like you to put yourself in that position of someone. Your imaginations will be able to paint a much more vivid picture than I ever could. So, what is that horribly low thing that would make you consider this and even try it out? Okay, so that's happened. You've survived. You've went and got the physical ailments and scars and whatnot. You've been taken to hospital. You've been found. Physically, after a few months, you're a lot better. Mentally, therapy and whatnot is ongoing. Eventually, after a long period, you start making your way back to work. Part-time, over a couple of months, you maybe build that up if all's going well. And I see at one point your manager approaches you and says, we've got a little bit of extra budget. We'd really, really like to sort of give you a wee reward. It's like, we don't have much and we'd like to support you. We know you've been through an awful lot. We'd like to send you to this conference that you're always talking about. So excellent, super excited. There's all these speakers on. You're super, really chuffed about that. You'll get to meet them, maybe speak to some of them, meet lots of new people. And so, the day comes, super excited, awesome, nearly there, anxious, excited, big mixture of two emotions going on. And, you go in, you're chatting to people, one thing or another. And it comes to, I don't know, say the 5th talk of the day. And, this is speaker so-and-so who's been working on Project Whiz Bang. Can't wait to hear about this. And the speaker starts up talking. And again, I feel very guilty for what I'm about to demonstrate or reenact. So the speaker starts the talk, and yay, I'm here, I'm so-and-so, I'm here to talk about Project Whiz Bang. It's really awesome, just about ready for release. See, the first 3 months, this project was so dull, you might as well slit your wrists. And the added hand gestures as well. From your point of view, as the person who's just, has been through that, who is recovering, what are you thinking and feeling right now? You're in a room with about 300 people. If you get up and run out, what are other people going to think? You're kind of outing yourself in a way. Or it's like all of a sudden somebody's put a spotlight right on. No, I can't pick on somebody. There's a spotlight being shone on you. From speaking to one of the volunteers at the conference, they looked at the audience when this happened. They sort of reported that there was a large proportion were nonplussed. There was a very large number that looked somewhat shocked. There was also another number, which was easily in double figures, that looked absolutely terrified. And all of this from prior to this, I would have considered was a throwaway comment. It was a phrase. It is, but this is how the impact that phrase can have. Coming back to yourself being in that situation, how is your mental health at that point? Is it good? Are you resilient enough to sort of deal with this? Is it going to spoil and ruin your day because you've been thrown right back to this situation, which is one of the lowest points of your life? Is your mental health not so resilient? Is it going to have a much more drastic impact? Hey. So to try and bring things back up a little bit, how can we better deal with things going forward in the future? Because there's only some things that I presented here tonight. This is the tip of the iceberg when it comes to dealing with and understanding other people. And yeah, I've got plenty to learn about it too. Okay, so to learn about other people, their struggles, whatever they may be, when it comes to social media, follow lots of other people from different backgrounds than yourself. This one is a bit more of a practical thing that may have been more use earlier tonight. So what you tend to find is like when people come into events that maybe don't know anybody else, they'll be sort of looking about. There's a sort of group of folk there in a circle chatting. There's a group of folk over there. And in their mind, I'm sure most of us will experience this. You're like, oh, they're all friends, they're all workmates. We'll leave them to it, I don't know anybody. If you've got your circle, quite literally and physically, if you take a step back, there's space for two folk to join. It gives them the opportunity. You are opening a door, effectively. At the same time, if somebody does come up and join in, have you been in a situation where you've joined the circle of complete strangers? You don't know what to say, you don't know who anybody is, you have no idea what the topic of discussion is? It seems really simple to just say, hi, My name's Peter. Chris. What's your name, Chris? Chris, nice to meet you, Chris. We're talking about language and behaviour. And yeah, Peter just won't shut up, you know? Bring them up to speed, then they're there. They've met somebody, there's a connection, and they can contribute and not just feel that they're standing there, still isolated, excluded like a lemon. And at the same time, take that a step further. If there's somebody stood in the corner while we're all having beer and pizza, say, hey, why don't you come and join us? And again, introduce yourself, catch them up in the conversation. They can join in. And at the same time, they might want their space, they might want peace and quiet, they might have had a really bad day. That's fine too. And I suppose one of the main points behind this talk is just to try and bring or share the knowledge about what's not so good, why it's not so good. But if you're still in that circle and someone says something that you deem inappropriate, there's a number of ways you can approach that. You can start shouting at them right there and then. They'll get very defensive and probably shout back. Nobody's really going to win. So what I would suggest trying, and again, this might depend on your personality type, the situation, the other person involved, who else is there. But if you could sort of quietly say, excuse me, can we have a wee chat? I don't know if you heard that. But it's like quietly inviting them for a little chat. We go away. We're not shaming them publicly in front of people. And we then get to say, look, here's what you said. It might apply to people in the group, it might not. But either way, here's the reasons why it's not acceptable. And either you agree or you don't. And ideally, if you agree, the person will go, wow, right, thank you very much for pointing that out to me. So that's that. So in terms of receiving the feedback, it's like, thank you. And you might want to consider going back and apologising to the people that you were chatting to at the time. Maybe you don't agree. Does this feedback keep coming to you repeatedly? There's a bit of something in there as well. So we've covered a whole lot of things, and a lot, particularly things like the phrase that we used during the mental health example. People find a lot of these things hard to change. But think of other things that are hard to change. In our industry, we've got these tin cans that fly through the sky, and we control them from the tower and air traffic control. You were talking about all these amazing things earlier on when we were having something to eat. We can do and we can engineer all these wonderful things. The sky scanner, we've got FanDuel upstairs. The technology and everything that goes into that is amazing. But people will say, but it's really hard to change how I say something or a phrase or something like that. Think of maybe the BBC. They're kind of, I envisage them as somewhat stuffy and behind the times. That seems fairly forward thinking to me. And if the BBC can do that, I would like to think that we can do better. Sky scanner.
Is it just me, or does that need any explanation?
Sorry.
No idea what this means.
Excellent. This is the new Doctor Who.
Oh, right.
So Doctor Who is traditionally since the 40s, 60s, always been played by a man. Doctor Who is an alien, and lots of people get very upset that a woman actress has now got the role. But yeah, it's an advancement for the BBC. This is Sao Paulo Airport, photograph that Mariko Kosamari took, and oops, I've pressed the wrong button. That's how it works. Diversity inspires creativity. Again, it's the airline industry. They're innovative in ways, but this seems like a very big and bold message. as well. So I suppose the key thing that I want you to take away tonight is an awareness of what can and sometimes tragically go wrong. And it can take little things. We can be inadvertently, it can be even a lot smaller, sort of like they're called microaggressions, that we can be doing, and we can be completely unaware that we're doing it. So let's try and help each other and get better overall. And so yes, this will take introspection and self-awareness. At the minute, that is the end of the talk. I do have a little bit of an announcement to make though. In terms of community events, it's kind of like jump from one subject to the other. So last year at the two conferences, we were trying to encourage people from more underrepresented groups to submit to speak, with the goal of achieving a diverse lineup of speakers at the conference. Which, given in Scotland, no, it's a black slide, it's okay. Given in Scotland, just if we pick on gender, and all the stats that I can find, it's always men and women. There's never any mention of non-binary people. So depending on where you find your figures in our industry in terms of development, we have either between 88 and 96% men in our industry. So that in terms of bringing that back to the conference, if we have 4% women in the industry, what's the chances of filling 17 slots of speakers, given that? And really, in the grand scheme of things, that's not the biggest issue. So what we did to try and boost our numbers, our lineup diversity, was to host a number of workshops. So we call these the Diversity CFP, Call for Proposals workshops, which would basically, the name kind of explains that there won't be any men folks around. Come along, there'll be a nice, safe, relaxed space. You'll have lots of people there to support you and encourage you in putting together your proposal. That idea kind of snowballed. We thought, yeah, conference is in Edinburgh, we'll have a workshop in Edinburgh. We maybe have one in Glasgow. Great. And so I mentioned this to my old boss in Dublin. Oh, we've got one in Dublin. Katie, who had spoken previously, said, oh, I'll do one in Sheffield. It'd be kind of nice if we had one in London, because there's loads and loads of people there. And I kind of mentioned it to some folks in Berlin, and they thought, this is a great idea. Over the course of 3 weeks, and feeling like I'd woken up with a very, very silly sort of idea, we had 6 workshops running in 4 countries, all on the same day, all with the same curriculum. And this resulted in 3 of the people from those workshops were in the final lineup of those 17 slots that were available to the call for proposals. There was 190 submissions. So and the final lineup, we had 8 men and 8 women and non-binary people speaking, and there was one last slot which was run by a duo. We had parity, which was quite terrifying. That worked out because my faint grasp on statistics didn't work out like that. So that's worked out really well for us. This is the concept. Let's take that idea, let's apply it to all events and all tech communities around the world. Let's give it away, let's enable everybody, everywhere, to run their own, all on the same day. So at the minute, this will launch on Monday. There's been a little bit of back channel work going on already. Maria Gutierrez from Free Agent is going to run our Edinburgh workshop. Catherine Kirkhope is going to run our Glasgow workshop. Katie Fenn is going to run Sheffield. JC Chong is going to look after Bath. Oh, I'm struggling with names now. Oh, Kimberly Cook is going to look after London. Dublin, we'll just keep going. Kim Creighton's going to look after Atlanta, New York, Boston, Los Angeles, San Francisco, San Diego, Singapore, Sydney. The blue ones are in the works. Folk are looking into them. And here's the other ones that we've been chasing as well. Berlin, Oslo, Montevideo in Uruguay, Brussels and Reykjavik. This is all going to be held on February the 3rd, Saturday, for a couple of afternoons. Please encourage all your friends to attend, participate. The goal is to bring more people from underrepresented groups to the stage, to encourage them and to enable them to do that in a safe and encouraging, positive manner. Thank you very much for your time, folks.
Okay, that's it for the night, I think, because I don't see any hands going up. Still no hands. Right, okay. Okay, next Tech Meetup will be 11th of November, which is a Wednesday and 28 days from tonight. October as well. Yes, look at that. When we'll have speakers and pizza and beer. And again, you're all welcome. If you want to bitch to us anonymously or say anything back to us anonymously, we have a Google group called Tech Meetup. Get a disposable email address and post your stuff in there. Don't worry, it's all moderated, so we will see it and go, that's very interesting. Because I've already had some feedback for tonight, which I will take into account for next month. And lastly, I'd like to thank our sponsors, who are Skyscanner, Cultivate, and Informatics Ventures. And that's it. Oh, if you want to speak at some point, go to Mark. If you want to try out your talk in a smaller audience, I am always happy to take people at the Falkirk Linux Users Group. And we've got Ed Lug over there, who will also give you a run. We are both small groups, so you won't be intimidated by the huge number of people staring at you. There'll be a small number of people staring at you. And that's it. See you next month.